Right, today I want to talk about bankruptcy or fallimento in Italiano. In English we call it bankruptcy. This is when a company, a business, can't continue because it's insolvent. It's not able to do its role in the economy. You've got to remember what is the role of a business in the economy, and that is to create wealth. We saw that before when we defined what is a business. They are wealth creators, and if these organizations of assets, barely assets, no longer are able to create wealth, but instead consume wealth, so it costs money to keep them going, eventually they fail. And they fail because no one wants to keep paying to keep a business going. If it's not making money, if it's not making profits, it's better it stops and the resources are used in a different way, in a better way, shall we say, where, we've got to remember the object of a business, an organisation, is to reach balance or profit. And if a business can't do that, in the end, the creditors, the people that business owes money to, will want their credit, their debts. They'll say, where is my payment this month? Or why haven't you paid me when you said you'll pay? And eventually the creditors will have enough and want to finish this business. So let's look more closely at why a business fails. Right, so we could say a company could fail or be insolvent, maybe because the situation, the external situation, economy has changed dramatically. For example, tariffs or restrictions are increased on foreign markets. For example, at the moment, Trump is putting a lot of tariffs on Chinese products, and China's retaliating, and say with Europe, etc. And so these businesses which export may have lots of problems selling in the market that they have developed, because suddenly their goods and services seem very expensive to the customers. Another reason could be too many debts. If an entrepreneur takes on too much debt because he looks in the long term, he sees in the long term he can pay these back, but in the short term he hasn't built up the market or the customer base or whatever, and he can't pay the debts in the short term. Creditors won't want to wait for years. They want their monthly payments. If he owes a lot of debts, that could be a reason. Even if the business is solvent in the long term, it might be insolvent in the short term. Or another reason could be a very important worker leaves, and with him, or even a group, the company loses a lot of competencies and knowledge. Maybe that those workers know how machines operate, they have contacts, they know how things work, maybe they have English, important languages, understandings, etc. That could be a real problem for a company, a small company that depends on these competencies. Suddenly it can't operate, but it still has to keep paying its debts, and in the end it could go bankrupt. Another reason could be because the competition becomes very numerous or very efficient. and they start stealing customers by putting prices down or increasing quality. We see now with China is producing a lot of very cheap goods that Italy can't compete with, and probably many companies in Italy have gone bankrupt simply because they can't compete against China, who make things much cheaper. Another reason could be a big machine, a very important machine, breaks or has an accident, or maybe there's a strike of workers in a shop, and this could mean disaster for a small operation. If they can't keep going, they can't keep the income coming in, but must keep paying the debts and the costs, etc. But obviously you can think of lots of reasons, because the possibilities are unlimited. There's lots of situations where companies have problems. It is always a risk to operate a company, to have money invested is always a risk. And you can lose if you don't make the right moves, make the right decisions. Okay, who initiates bankruptcy? Normally, the creditors will initiate. They'll stop being paid and they'll get very worried and scared that they're going to lose their investment, their credit that they've lent to the company, and they'll start the process thinking if they leave it too long, the business is losing money, losing value, and they won't have anything left. So normally the creditors, but it can be the entrepreneur, the business owner that starts the bankruptcy proceedings. It's not necessarily the creditors, but it can even be a public minister if it's a very big company, very important company. Maybe the minister will want to bring that company into a process where it can be saved, jobs can be saved. So it doesn't mean always that the business goes into failure, is eliminated. It can be saved. It can be, for example, amministrazione controllato, or other very big processi concorsuali that do actually have the objective to save as much of the company as possible, to save obviously the jobs, obviously the machinery, etc., the assets of the company, barely the company have value while they're being used as a part of a company, and outside, if the company does get lost, maybe many assets will lose value anyway. I can think of Alitalia, for example, is an example where the public minister initiated this process to save the company. Obviously thinking of jobs, but also thinking of the value of all the assets invested in the company. And it didn't want to, once it goes, Alitalia goes, maybe a second-hand plane would not be worth much, or not so much as part of a company. So normally those are the initiators of bankruptcy. It is possible to distinguish between creditors. Okay, every creditor in its category must be fairly treated in an equal way, but there are different categories of creditors. For example, we've got creditori muniti di causa legittima di prelazione. I've kept that in Italian because it's very specific to Italy. So normally I keep them Italian when they're very specific to Italy. So, for example, procedure casuali, very specific. So, if a debtor normally, or creditor, normally they're very big, powerful creditors like the bank, normally they ask for a guarantee for their loan, for their credit, and like it could be an asset, it could be like a machine or a van or something, or it could be a building, so they can have this guarantee, and they will be paid first. There are other reasons of being treated as a privileged creditor, but one of them is they've got guarantees. They're not just, suppliers. Suppliers won't have the guarantees that a bank will. The bank will ask for guarantees. Maybe they will ask for guarantees in a contract. But then you've got another category, which is creditori chirografari. And these are the creditors which don't have any special treatment. They are paid after the others. There is an order of payment established by the civil law, and actually, you can have these creditori muniti di causa legittima di prelazione. They can be the employees. So, obviously, employees, people who work for the company, depend heavily on that company for income, for keeping their families fed and kept. So they will be treated specially and paid before the others. Or, for example, the tax office, that comes before the other creditors. So they are given special treatment. So we do have this difference between creditors, and normally the people who start the proceedings towards bankruptcy would be the strong creditors that know that they will get some money, like a bank probably, and the smaller creditors that know they won't see any money. If all the creditors are paid, they have to wait, and they'll get maybe just 5% or maybe nothing. They won't want to. And then there's the creditors like the employees waiting for their wages, and they won't want the business to stop anyway, because their future is tied to the business and they want to see it continue. Also, the suppliers may be in that situation where they depend on a monthly income from the business, and they won't want to see this business close. So you do have the strong creditors like the banks and other strong creditors that maybe get nervous and start the proceedings.